if you look at the specimen of the upper limb, this is the little finger and this is the thumb. So the thumb is on the lateral side and the little finger is on the medial side. Also we have the scapula over here, so this is the medial side. On the medial side, this is scapula, this is clavicle, and over there will be the shoulder joint between the humerus and the scapula. So this is the serratus anterior, which is inserted into the costal surface medial border. This is the subscapularis muscle. This is clavicle, and below the clavicle this muscle is subclavius muscle. If we move backwards, this muscle, which is a small triangular muscle and is attached onto the coracoid process, it is pectoralis minor. Below the lateral to the pectoralis minor, all of this is deltoid. This deltoid, if we go posteriorly, the scapula is covered by a large muscle which is called the trapezius. Below the trapezius over here in the infraspinous fossa will be infraspinatus. This is supraspinatus, this is infraspinatus, and over here this muscle is teres minor, and below it will be teres major, which will go towards the medial lip of the intertubercular sulcus. Posteriorly we have triceps, this muscle which is coming from the mass of the between the deltoid and the scapular muscles. This is the long head of triceps. Over here towards the deltoid, insertion of the deltoid, is the lateral head of triceps, and this is the radial nerve. This is the radial nerve. Okay, and medial head of the triceps is present over here medially. Now over here medially. Now coming towards the anterior side, anteriorly we have the biceps and the coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis is not visible over here. This cut section is of coracobrachialis. This cut section is of biceps brachii. Removing the biceps brachii, we have the brachialis muscle beneath it. Okay, if we look at the brachial plexus, what we can see is, making them a little more discernible, what we can see in the brachial plexus is that this is the axillary artery. Axillary artery is the part over which the cords of the brachial plexus are running, and they form its relations. So to identify the cords of the brachial plexus or the branches of the brachial plexus, we look at the cubital fossa. The branch which passes through the cubital fossa is the median nerve. Tracing it upwards, we can see that this median nerve has two roots, alright, a root which is lateral and a root which is medial. So from the lateral root of the median nerve, it comes from the lateral cord, and the lateral cord also gives off the ulnar nerve. So this nerve over here, this one is the ulnar nerve. Then the other root is the median nerve, and musculocutaneous is given from that. So this one, which is going to enter into the plane between the biceps and the brachialis, is the ulnar nerve, and over here, which goes towards the lateral side of the epicondyle, towards the medial epicondyle, and is going to pass posterior to the medial epicondyle, is the ulnar nerve. Superiorly, we have over here this nerve. This one. This is going towards the surgical neck of the humerus. So this is going to be axillary, and beneath it another nerve is present over here. This one. This is the radial nerve, which is going to go towards the bicipital groove as it passes here. This was radial groove, this is radial groove, alright. And over here upwards is the axillary nerve. Okay, moving downwards, we look at the arm and the muscles of the arm. This is the thumb and this is the little finger. This part over towards the medial side is the flexor compartment. So the boundaries of the cubital fossa are formed by the interepicondylar line, and its floor is formed by the pectineus and the brachioradialis. So this muscle, very small muscle which is going to attach towards the radius, this is pectineus. After pectineus, this is flexor carpi radialis, going towards the radial side, and it is the flexor of the wrist and also the abductor of the wrist. Then we have flexor digitorum superficialis. This muscle is flexor digitorum superficialis. Below the flexor digitorum, this muscle which has these tendinous arches going superiorly is the flexor digitorum profundus. This one as well, all of this is flexor digitorum profundus, and present towards the deep in the deep structures and going towards the hallucis towards the pollicis. This is the flexor hallucis longus. So the first layer is formed by the flexor carpi radialis over here, then the flexor digitorum superficialis. We cannot visualize palmaris longus in this tendon. Then we have the deep muscles, the flexor digitorum profundus and the flexor digitorum pollicis longus, and then this muscle, the flexor carpi ulnaris. All right, moving on. In the anterior compartment, we can see this artery. This artery is the anterior tibial artery. So this is the anterior tibial artery which is running on the interosseous membrane. Also we have this artery which is broken but still visible at its distal part. This is the radial artery which is going to be palpable over here at the head of the radius, and then it will move towards the anatomical snuff box. Over here under the cover of the flexor carpi ulnaris, we have an artery and a nerve. This artery is the ulnar artery, and accompanied with it the ulnar nerve which passed behind the medial epicondyle. This one, this is the over here, this one is the ulnar nerve. Moving towards the back, over here we have the first muscle of the extensor compartment, the brachioradialis, which is coming from the lateral supracondylar ridge and going towards the radius. This is the brachioradialis. After it is extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. They are going to be attached to the second and the third metacarpals. Then we have three outcropping muscles over here. This is abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis and extensor pollicis longus. This one is the extensor pollicis longus. Beneath them, okay, going backwards, we have another layer which is formed by the extensor digitorum, this one, extensor digiti minimi, and then the extensor going over here. This is the extensor carpi ulnaris. In the first space between the first and the second metacarpal, this is the first dorsal interosseous. Over here laterally is the abductor pollicis brevis. Medially, this one is the flexor pollicis, this one is the flexor pollicis brevis, and below it is the opponens pollicis. Similar here, the outermost is abductor, then we have flexor, and beneath the abductor is the opponens pollicis.